Good morning. I'm Darnell Hunt, Chair of the Department of Sociology. On behalf of our students, faculty, and staff, I'd like to welcome you all, parents, family, friends, and especially the class of 2016. Class of 2016, you made it. Your hard work, dedication, and focus have finally paid off. Your presence here today marks the realization of the promise you exhibited years ago when you were being considered for admission to UCLA. As we all know, just getting into UCLA is no minor accomplishment these days. Shortly, you will join the ranks of those who can proudly say they are graduates of this great university. Of course, you didn't do any of this alone. Let's take a moment now to applaud the proud family members and friends who supported you every step of the way. Not only did you show enough promise to get into UCLA, and not only were you focused enough to navigate the winding road to graduation, but you were also wise enough along the way to declare sociology as a major. Our department, the Department of Sociology, was established at UCLA nearly 70 years ago in 1948. It is consistently ranked among the top departments of sociology in the nation. Class of 2016, you will shortly join more than 18,000 graduates of our department, women and men, who have gone on to apply sociological ways of seeing to make their marks on the world. Now, for those of you uninitiated into sociological ways of seeing the world, this choice may go unappreciated, but class of 2016, you know better. Like the movers and shakers who have gone before you to major in sociology. For example, the novelist Saul Bellow, First Lady Michelle Obama, the singer Dinah Shore, President Ronald Reagan, and the Reverend Martin Luther King. Just to name a few, you have been provided with an important analytical toolkit. You have been trained in a special way of thinking about the world. As you will soon see firsthand, class of 2016, these skills will prove very handy in your efforts to excel, whether you end up working in business, the arts, or the public sector. Recently, I came across a list claiming to identify 60 signs that you studied sociology in college. Class of 2016, let's see if they got it right. The top 10 signs are as follows. Number 10, you spend a lot of time explaining why things happen the way they do. Families, is this your graduate? Number 9, you hear a lot of people's opinions on social reality and they're mostly wrong. Graduates, is this you? Number 8, Bourdieu and Foucault get you hot and heavy. Number 7, biological determinism makes you puke. Number 6, you know that everything, at least in part, is socially constructed. Number 5, you sigh when people mix up sex and gender. Number 4, you're all about that intersectionality. Number 3, you use Durkheim to understand mob mentality. Number 2, you know how Weber would interpret conservative policies against public assistance programs. And the number 1 sign, you have a love-hate relationship with Marx. As the social theorist Pierre Bourdieu famously noted, quote, "The function of sociology, as every science, is to reveal that which is hidden." Class of 2016, as sociology graduates, you now understand that the causes of much of what happens in the social world are often hidden, often mistakenly understood in terms of common sense explanations. Your unique contribution as sociology graduates is your ability to see beyond the immediate common sense and often individual level explanations for social problems, and instead to make visible the influence of broader societal patterns that shape access to resources and opportunity. Yes, class of 2016, you understand and appreciate the influence of what we sociologists refer to as social structures. In the coming years, your mastery of this perspective, which sociologist C. Wright Mills referred to as the sociological imagination, will pay enormous dividends for you. Wow, not your typical day in Southern California in June, huh? Well, class of 2016, we applaud you for your perseverance. Okay, I'm now honored to introduce this year's commencement speaker. Musician, artist, and writer Kim Gordon is an alumna of the UCLA Lab School, formerly known as Corrine A. Siege University Elementary School, or UES. She later studied art at the Otis Art Institute in Los Angeles. Born in Rochester, New York, Gordon moved to Los Angeles with her family when her father joined the faculty of the UCLA Department of Sociology and established the university's Sociology of Education program. Gordon rose to prominence as the bassist, guitarist, and vocalist of the New York City-based alternative rock band Sonic Youth, which she formed with Thurston Moore in 1981. She continued to write and release material with Sonic Youth until the breakup of the band in 2011. She is currently a member with Bill Nace of the guitar duo Bodyhead. Gordon is the author of 2 books, Is It My Body? Selected Text 2014 and Girl in a Band 2015. In 2015, her artwork was the subject of solo exhibitions at the Menaki Museum in Athens and the 303 Gallery in New York. In January, she curated the Gagosian booth at the Los Angeles Art Book Fair. In her performances, written work, and interviews, we see echoes of Gordon's lifelong engagement with sociology and sociological thinking. For example, in a Chicago Tribune interview last year, Gordon reflects back on seeing titles from some of her father's books, like Men in Their Work, and what that meant for her as a little girl. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure to introduce to you the one and only Kim Gordon.
Thank you very much. Check, check, check. This reminds me a little bit of being at like a rock festival, rainy, in Glastonbury, and looking out into the audience and thinking, oh, damn. I feel sorry for them. I'm incredibly thrilled and surprised to be here. I just want to say good morning, class of 2016, parents, families, faculty, and friends. I am deeply honored to be here today with you all to take part in this really special celebration. Let me begin by saying how far out of my comfort zone this is. Inside, I feel still at some nebulous age in my teens. What sort of advice could I possibly offer to you graduates? Because you're all so smart. We'll have to wait and see. The last time I was here at UCLA was on the occasion of my father's retirement. Well, that's not entirely true. That's just the last time I was here in any kind of academic capacity. The last time I actually set foot on this campus was in the 2000s when I curated a festival here with my band, Sonic Youth, called All Tomorrow's Parties. As I walked around campus that day, ghost memories of my childhood came back. You see, UCLA was one of my most formative locations of my childhood. From kindergarten to 6th grade, I attended the lab school, then known as UES. Every afternoon, I walked from school to the bus stop on the other side of campus. Sometimes I would take detours, the way that kids do, when time is all stretched out before you and rushing isn't a thing you've yet learned. I remember turning off light switches as I ran through the halls, sliding down banisters in my tomboy jeans. I'd invent new, exciting routes through the campus buildings and race to pick a pomegranate from a tree at the bus stop. UCLA was my playground. It is also the place where my father, C. Wade Gordon, spent most of his time, first as a professor, then in 1974, taking on administrative duties as chairman, associate dean, interim dean, and finally, dean. of the Sociology and Education Department until his retirement in 1981. When my father died in 1998, Saul Cohen, former dean of that department, wrote a moving tribute to him, characterizing him as a calm and humane administrator. Words you could also use to describe his parenting style. Although I remember hearing him pacing back and forth in his wild jungle of tomato plants in the backyard, his Kansas farm boy upbringing never far away, the stress of administration always hanging around. But my father tempered his Midwestern sense of integrity and hard work with a dry wit and a folksy, self-deprecating humor. He seemed to relish coming up with a bad pun. There were many jokes about the duplication of data in a means to keeping much coveted office space. Saul Cohen talked in the memoriam about my father's contributions to sociology and developing a sociology of education curriculum when he was brought here to UCLA. For his PhD, he published the first ever study of the social interactions and cliques within the closed system of a high school. He was a consultant on studies of the integration of the LA public school systems. I remember him going downtown to testify in the lawsuit against the LA city school system. His study of children of color within segregated schools revealed that they were frequently pushed forward to the next grade level, whether they were failing or not, just to keep the flow of students moving through. The judge's ruling brought about the use of busing in Los Angeles to better integrate the kids in an attempt to create a more equal education. It was a controversial decision at the time. In fact, it was overturned a decade later. He went on to describe my father as aloof, contained, and a man of wisdom and integrity with an air of de Gaulle about him. He quoted one of my dad's lines of advice to faculty: "Don't find meaning in life till after tenure." Saul also offered that my father could be a bit absent-minded. A colleague once offered him a cigarette, which he took and started smoking, only to then say, "Oh, I don't smoke. I forgot." It didn't surprise me to hear that story, as one of my favorite memories of him is when I was 5 and he picked me up and put me into the bathtub with my socks on, which I thought was fantastic and wanted him to repeat it over and over. In addition to being a non-smoking creative bath giver, my father was a notoriously amazing cook and often hosted grad students at the house. He invented his own meat smoker out of an oil can and cooked chicken wings and ribs using a mysterious concoction of Asian marinade inspired by the year we lived in Hong Kong. I learned how to cook simply by watching him in the kitchen and tasting his good food. For instance, when he was frying salmon steaks, my friend and I witnessed him wafting the smell with his hand into his right rather large nostril as he leaned into it to determine if it was done or not. Years later, I discovered that just as I had absorbed my father's love for cooking and knack for culinary intuition, sociology had seeped into me. When I went to art school, I learned about conceptual art, much of which rubbed shoulders with anthropology, psychology, and sociology. It was the interaction of these fields within the arts that truly captured my imagination. For my final work at Otis Art Institute, I wrote a statement that said, "The audience is the art for the duration of the exhibition. A sociological study was done to determine what the audience would look like. I look forward to seeing the art." It was printed and laid out in a stack in the gallery for people to take as they entered. They milled around, looking at each other, very puzzled. As a young child, I spent a lot of time looking at my father's books. I was never sure what a sociologist in education was, and I wanted to know. One book in particular stood out, titled Men and Their Work. That title intrigued me, as the world of boys and men was always seemingly action-filled. Years later, while living in New York, one of my first forays into the art community was writing an essay for Real Life magazine called Trash, Drugs, and Male Bonding. Basically, it was a description of a downtown composer, Rhys Chatham, who at the time was using electric guitars to create overtones. The performance was ritualistically enhanced by a popular over-the-counter drug called locker room, which was anal nitrate. The members of the trio would inhale the drug and then start downstroking their guitars, creating ethereal anthemic sounds. It was perversely formal. I continued to be obsessed with male bonding, maybe as a way of rebelling against intellectualism and feminism at the same time. There was so much written about sexualized females, but not much written descriptively about male sexuality, except in literature, though not men as sex objects. I read John Ritchie's books about the gay club scene in the West Village, because that was the place to find descriptions of male sexuality and interaction. That was the 80s. I also started playing music with boys so I could get a closer look. There are plenty of other artists who have been influenced by sociology. My friend, the artist Dorit Cypress, got her degree in sociology, but afterwards wanted to go to the Nova Scotia School of Art and Design. As part of her application, the school director told her to draw a potato and bring it back to him the next day. She went to the store and bought a potato and went to her hotel room. She started trying to draw it and kept crumpling the paper and throwing it onto the floor in frustration. Eventually, she had a huge pile of crumpled papers. The next day, she scooped all of them up and put them in her 7-Eleven bag, took them to the director, and emptied them out in his desk. He said, "What's this?" She replied, "This is sociology." To which he replied, "Okay, you're in." You must be wondering what my point is. Where's the wisdom that is being imparted in this commencement speech? Well, I told you at the beginning, I wasn't sure if I had any. But I can say this. You never know what sociology will look like or where it will take you, much like the speech. As I learned in the art world, there is no one right way to have an art career. The unconventional is just as valid as the conventional. By studying the sociology of the education department itself, my father was able to navigate around people and potentially explosive situations with humor and sensitivity to achieve his goals, while making most people feel that they had won the battle. It was a lesson for me in making a weaker position powerful. In a world that says success is being the star in a reality TV show, and where aggressive sound bites are what's passed around as truth, it's nice to know that your education, whether it be the ambiguous label of a liberal arts degree, learning how to read people and the world around you, isn't going to be canceled when the season is over. You're a winner. You've already won. You've already attained what most people in the world can only dream of. Not only do you have shelter and food and access to the best medical services, you have a liberal arts education. You're sociologists. All you have to do now is figure out what sociology means to you with or without tenure. Congratulations to all of you. Thank you.